Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I had a chance to sit down with Megyn Kelly today for an hour. I refer you to that interview. She asked probably all the questions you guys would like to ask.
Will you commit to not drinking? Will you commit to not drinking on the job?
Oh my God. We actually have to ask a nominee for Secretary of Defense if he would commit to not drinking on the job. That was the question that was shouted at him when he turned, on his little loafer there and just scooted away. No more questions. Thank you. Go listen to Megyn Kelly's podcast. All right. Worst answer ever.
Some of those attachments.
Sorry, that's his mother. His mother was on Fox News, too. This is an all hands on deck thing. Okay, so here's Megyn Kelly's podcast. She said, "What about your drinking problem? Do you worry about that?"
They're not upset about your drinking?
You know what? There's an interesting one there. First of all, I've never had a drinking problem. No one's ever approached me and said, "Oh, you should really look at getting help for a drink." Never. I've never sought counseling, never sought help. I respect and appreciate people who do. But what do guys do when they come back from war? Oftentimes, have some beers.
Beers?
How do you deal with the demons you see on the battlefield? Sometimes it's with a bottle. Unfortunately, tragically, for too many guys, it's with the bottle, and then it's depression, and even worse, suicide. I mean, we've got an epidemic of that in our country. Thank God, by the grace of God, I found my chapters of purpose that pulled me out of that.
So you got a job at Fox News is what pulled you out of it. Is he saying that it's that when guys come home, women too? Well, he doesn't think women should be in combat, But we should run this by Tammy Duckworth and find out if she's entered into the bottle after she lost both her legs. I think she entered into in vitro fertilization. I think that's what she entered into, and decided that she was going to start a family. However, in Hegseth's world, it's perfectly permissible to crawl into a bottle if you come home from service and you're suffering from PTSD instead of getting help for PTSD, which people do all the time. Now, what's really fascinating about him is that 10 of his coworkers at Fox News, 10 of them were very interested in talking about how, when he came to work at 6 a.m., because it was a weekend morning show, it starts at 6 a.m. on your TV, which means you should be there by 4, okay? It really does mean that. Just so you know, I used to do mornings. I didn't last very long because of the schedule. But yes, you need to be at work by 4:30 the latest, right? Especially, this was radio, okay, for me. But this is television for him, which means makeup. It means hair. It means running through several topics because you're working on a team. It means producers, executive. Radio means none of this, okay? None of this actually occurs. It's just, oh my God, here we go. And 5, 4, 3, 2, go, right? One day I wanted to freak somebody out so bad, and I said, they go, oh, there's nothing to your job. So I waited until I'm going to say 30 seconds before air. I got up out of my seat and I go, sit down, sit in that chair. And they freaked out. What do you mean? What do you mean? See, it's not so easy. Okay, but he has to be on the TV, which means a lot of prep, okay? And he would come in at 5 seconds to 6, according to 10 of his colleagues, okay? Smelling of alcohol from the night before they guessed, or having had alcohol before 6 a.m. 10 people have said that about him. 10. Listen, this is just so bogus. This is so, and of course, he said that he spoke to Donald Trump. He finally appeared today on camera. He said he had spoken to Donald Trump today, and that Donald Trump just told him, keep on going. Keep on going. He's being led out to pasture. You understand that, right? And so now we're talking about who could possibly be the replacement, just like Matt Gaetz. And I'm telling you right now, Tulsi Gabbard, Hegseth. I told you this yesterday and the day before. The idea that we're supposed to have spasms when we hear these names of ill-prepared people with various problems with regard to women, drinking, no experience, running anything bigger than, a garage band, right, or a platoon, now being in charge of, 1 million or 2 million employees and, a chain of command and, just all of this, right? Don't freak out, because this is really just a head fake so that the billionaires will look palatable and better. That's what this is. And I keep on trying to explain to you that the billionaire class is taking over this country, and that is what this is about. And if we push back too hard against the billionaire class, well, then he needs a friendly at the Department of Defense. He needs somebody that isn't going to question whether or not it's legal to have martial law in the United States. And the answer is no, it isn't. Whether it's legal to have the American military deploy against Americans, no, it's not. There you go. So, there's so many things that would have to take place over a long ass period of time for any of this to be, remotely okay. Because it isn't. And in case you were wondering, who pushes back on Donald Trump trying to declare martial law, you understand what martial law means, right? First of all, let's just understand the words we're using, because Insurrection Act and martial law, not the same. Martial law means the courts are now, controlled by the military. Everything is controlled by the military. They're on the street keeping you in your house. You can't leave your house. That would never happen in this country, okay? We have too much of a decentralized government. Think about it this way. You know how when we have an election, we don't have one election, we have 50 different elections, and that the states each run their own elections? That's kind of how courts are in this country, too. We do have one federal court, but we also have several state courts, like 50 of them, okay? And 50 state Supreme Courts. And 50 state governors who are, in essence, the chief executive of that state. And because we have a decentralized way of self-governing, the odds that we would ever see martial law declared in this country and upheld by anybody, let alone a governor or a state court or a deployment in your state or my state, even if you had a Republican governor, okay, even if you did, there's just no way. There's no way. That's why people are so concerned with who gets the Secretary of Defense position, because that person might just try to push out, just some sort of martial look and law thing. And Hegseth would be the perfect guy to do it, right? There are other, cheap picks too. And so now all of a sudden, you're starting to hear some that make sense and some that don't. So let's deal with the one that doesn't make sense. Well, Hegseth obviously doesn't make any sense to anybody, not even, the Republican senators. And there's a lot of pushback on this nomination, just as there was against Matt Gaetz, right? And some people are starting to get hip to the fact that this is all a head fake anyway, and that there will be, within 30 seconds, there will be a new name floated if, there seems to be no will to confirm this guy, Hegseth. His name is unpronounceable. I can't go through 4 years with it. But, okay. So, some people are talking about Ron DeSantis. I didn't even run that by Brett before we got on the air. See, because this is, you don't really have to, prepare anything for this show. Only I have to be prepared. You should have seen his face. You should put your face on camera. That was just so perfect. That was the right reaction. I think everyone in this audience just went with the same, it looks a little something like this. Right. And here's how that would work in a brief explanation. So Ron DeSantis appoints Laura Trump as the new senator to replace Marco Rubio from Florida, who heads to the State Department. And in exchange, DeSantis gets the nomination for Secretary of Defense. That's how ugly it could get, okay?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, let's end Hegseth's nomination right now. Let's just end it. Okay, ready?
What you're seeing right now with me is the art of the smear. It is the classic art of the smear. Take whatever tiny kernels of truth, and there are tiny, tiny ones in there, and blow them up into a masquerade of a narrative about somebody that I am definitely not. And what they never quote, and we'll get into this too, are the legions of people from who I served with in combat, multiple tours, from the multiple veterans organizations that I very proudly ran, and I really want to get into that.
Yeah, me too. Okay, let's get into the veterans organizations that he proudly ran, that he wants to get into.
CBS News has confirmed President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was forced to step down as head of a veterans' rights group in 2016 following a series of complaints. The allegations against Hegseth were first reported in The New Yorker. It details a whistleblower report and other documents that suggest Hegseth was accused of, quote, financial mismanagement, sexist behavior, and being repeatedly intoxicated on the job. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian asked Hegseth about this while on Capitol Hill Monday.
When you were at Concerned Veterans for America, were you ever drunk while traveling on the job?
I'm not going to dignify that with a response.
I mean, can you respond to those allegations, sir? I don't know if you've read the New Yorker article, but there was also a whistleblower report that was conducted at the organization. Are you familiar with what that details?
I'm talking to all the senators, and I look forward to those discussions.
Would you care to respond to the allegations, sir?
Look forward to talking to senators.
Okay, he doesn't deny any of it. He just says, I refuse to dignify that with a response. And then, do you care to respond? But then he sits on Megyn Kelly's show today and says, I'm very proud of the way that I, ran these veterans. This is a Koch brothers veterans group. Koch brothers, yes, the billionaire Koch brothers, and that's who picked him to run their veterans group. A guy who says, hey, listen, when you come back, anyway, he's not going to make it. You understand that, okay? And then the next one that isn't going to make it is going to be Tulsi Gabbard. She's not going to make it either. No, she's not going to make it either because she obviously is, Nikki Haley has got a bullseye on Tulsi Gabbard. With all kinds of evidence about secret meetings with Bashar al-Assad, with, Russian talking points coming out of her mouth to defend the invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. I mean, there's no... So what is this really about? It's about who he really wants in there, And when I see Ron DeSantis' name floated in the Wall Street Journal, which is a right-wing newspaper owned by Rupert Murdoch, and they're suggesting that we all get used to the idea of Secretary of Defense Ron DeSantis. It sort of begs the question, is everything going to be a quid pro quo with this guy? And, of course, the nice word they use for this now is transactional. He's a transactional dude. All right, so what is our task at hand, okay? If we understand that names like Ron DeSantis could be floated in exchange for filling a Senate seat with Eric Trump's wife. I mean, really, you got Tiffany Trump's father-in-law is going to be our advisor to the Middle East, which is on fire right now, okay? You understand? And for those of you who protested because you think Biden wasn't, trying for a ceasefire hard enough and that Biden was the problem here and it wasn't the right-wing lunatic Benjamin Netanyahu. Just wait until Benjamin Netanyahu, the right-wing lunatic, has to do business with the right-wing lunatic Donald Trump. Yeah. You know what's going to happen? Our envoy over there is a real estate developer. And now Tiffany Trump's father-in-law is going to be our advisor on what? How to develop Gaza into a Mediterranean paradise? Because that's where this is all going to lead. Billionaires in charge of everything all the time inside government. You talk about the swamp. This is he's building it. He's literally seeding it with alligators and crocs and all kinds of vicious people. So what do we do? Okay, I know that's the question that's burning in everybody. Okay, it's not ridiculously hard. It's not easy. I'm not going to tell you it is. But I am going to give you some lessons learned from looking at yesterday. South Korea was so instructive for me. I didn't hear anybody talking about it until I talked about it, and everybody's talking about it good. Yes, Brett, it makes me feel crazy when that happens. He's like, you shouldn't feel crazy. I didn't hear anybody doing that story yesterday. I didn't even know that happened till I came in and talked to you. And now when I was leaving, I'm listening to everybody, on the morning shows today, talk about all the lessons we should learn from South Korea's, entree into martial law that lasted for like 3 hours. Right?
I woke up to it immediately. I just had to laugh. And you can feel crazy, but know that you are not.
I do feel crazy because,
crazy.
I say things here and then they come out over there. And I never, ever get the hat tip or anything like that. Okay, fine. As long as people are talking about it. Here's what we do. The first thing you understand about this here country is that the way that we self-govern, the way that the country is set up with, states and states' rights and all of this stuff, okay, is in our favor, okay? It means that our governors can say whether or not they want the U.S. military deployed on their state land, whether or not they want us being kept in our houses, because that's what martial law is. Martial law means that the troops run the courts, the troops surround the Capitol, and the troops don't let the lawmakers into the So you know what we learned yesterday in South Korea? So we learned that the military, the Secretary of Defense was in on it. This is why it's so important who our Secretary of Defense is. This is why. And, of course, we have media without context. We have media that's just, covering the big game show that is the, autocratic apprentice, right? That's going on there on the TV. But they're not explaining to you why it matters who our Secretary of Defense is. Well, yesterday in South Korea, you could see that the only person that was in on the caper was the Secretary of Defense, who, by the way, offered to resign today in South Korea, rather than go through an impeachment, which is likely to happen. Now, I will say that, this President Yoon has organized his party in their assembly against participating in anything to do with an impeachment. And so they've got some hurdles to climb. This is also instructive. This is also something we should look at. Now you have to understand, our House of Representatives, it's going to be a 2-vote majority. Okay, that's what it's going to be. That is so narrow that I can pretty much pick off 2 sensible Republicans from New York, okay, that would not vote for martial law, that would not, sit back, relax, and enjoy the fact that their constituents are being blocked in their homes in New York State by U.S. military men, which is what martial law is. So I think we can rely a little bit on the federal government. I think we can rely a little bit on the U.S. Congress. I really do. But we may not even get that far because, remember, we have states and state courts and state Supreme Courts.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Lesson number 1, if you're going to beat back this trend or this desire or this push towards an autocracy, a dictatorship, whatever you want to, term it, to take power away from us and to concentrate it in one man, that is not American, okay? So here's the first thing. Don't disengage. Don't tune out. I know the impulse. I had it myself. I had it really badly. And then, Thanksgiving came and it was perfectly timed. Perfectly, I tell you. And, I got to drown myself in stuffing. I got to drown myself in mac and cheese. I got to drown myself in carbs. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I get it. It's a natural inclination to try to turn off all the noise, including me. I get it. And all news. But you can't stay that way because we're about to go through a stress test. At the very least, you understand. And whether or not we pass that stress test is up to each and every one of us. So you have to stay connected. You have to, you can't stop posting, and you can't stop having facts, and you can't stop knowing your rights. Especially now, you need to know them all. So if you appreciate knowing things and orienting yourself to the situation at hand, please do support independent media, because we're here to do exactly that, to keep you connected in a way that is, I mean, I get it, a lot of people want to meditate. There's an app for that. There is. A lot of people want to, travel. Okay. Come back and tune back in. Book clubs are good, but read about Poland and read about Hungary and read about South Korea. Why? Because you'll see that they were able to beat back this white supremacist autocracy that had taken over their countries, right? And it didn't happen overnight, and the beating back of it sort of kind of did when everybody showed up and voted. And that's what's on us, okay? That's what's on us. The next couple of years, it's going to be on us. And so if you appreciate independent media, call 877-378-8669 right now, and make a donation during the winter Free Speech TV Pledge Drive. Or see the QR code there? Just take your phone, scan it. It'll take you to freespeech.org. You can donate there. If you want to just use your phone, text to 44321, 44321. The letters FSTV, and we'll send you a secure link, and you can make your donation that way. Okay, that's it. Here's the first thing you need to know. Autocracy, dictatorship, all that does not happen overnight. It just doesn't. When Erdogan in Turkey, when we first started seeing him turn to the autocratic universe and starting to crave centralized power in his little hands, that was 10 years ago, okay? It took 10 years for him to consolidate all his institutions. One of the things you can do is pick an institution and always take its side, like anything you feel really strongly about. Let's say your thing is food. Let's say your thing is the Food and Drug Administration. Let's say your thing is vaccines, and you're a school teacher, and you don't want the kids being admitted to school without polio and diphtheria, and rubella. You want them under the measles umbrella. You know what I mean? Let's say that, you don't want to then defend and watch like a hawk who gets put at HHS. Defend and watch like a hawk who gets put at the Food and Drug Administration. Defend and watch the CDC. Okay, or maybe your thing is civil liberties, okay? And in that case, you give a damn who is the Attorney General of the United States of America. And you look at the Department of Justice, and that becomes the institution that you wrap your brain around, and you become an advocate for it. And you say, listen, Bill Barr said that, Kash Patel over his dead body. Now, that was a fairly corrupt attorney general, Bill Barr was. But there was a Rubicon, there was a Rubicon that even he would not cross, and that was saying that the election was rigged. Now we have election deniers being nominated to be the attorney general of the United States of America. That would be Pam Bondi, okay? Pam Bondi, the attorney general of Florida. Not only does she take the side of banks over homeowners in the state of Florida when they come to foreclose erroneously based on robo-signatures that are coming from Malaysia and are fake signatures on documents, kind of like a fake elector document, but she actually took the side of the banks over the homeowners in this here state. And when you compare the same exact scenario with Kamala Harris, who was the Attorney General of California, she took the side of the homeowners in California and won billions of dollars for them because they were wrongfully foreclosed upon. You can see the difference in character and priorities just in that one thing, just in that one arena, that one area. And so pick something that you care about. Okay, that's like pick anything at all. State courts, state Supreme Court, governors, that you're going to, focus on the governors upholding the rule of law, martial law, knowing that martial law is illegal in this country. Maybe the Department of Defense is your thing. Maybe you're a vet. And maybe the idea that you would see young kids now, because most of the heavy work is done by the military, that's done by the military, is done by 19-year-olds. We all know that. But to see young kids literally pointing weapons at their own citizens, I mean, that would be That would be vomit inducing. That would be totally no. I don't think I could tolerate it. I don't know what I would do. I honestly do not know. I've asked myself. I don't know the answer yet. But whatever institution is important to you, adopt it, defend it, know it, watch it. Okay. The other thing that we need to understand as we go through this stress test, and we will go through a stress test, and this was freaking brilliant, and I did not think of it because unlike people that, didn't think of it but repeat what I say, if somebody comes up with a brilliant idea, I want you to know that it's not my idea and give a hat to. Well, in Common Dreams today, there is an article written by a girl. I have to look up her. I'm so sorry. Her name isn't on this document. Hey, Sean, go look at the 46 senators call on Biden to certify the Equal Rights Amendment as GOP control looms and give me the name of the author of that piece in Common Dreams. Thank you. By the time I get done, we will know who to tip the hat to. This girl points out correctly that the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, okay, which would guarantee women the right to choose because you could not discriminate our health care based on the fact that we have uteri. Julia Conley, thank you. This is the work of Julia Conley, and it's so smart. So you know that we had an Equal Rights Amendment that was passed by Congress in 1972? It was immediately ratified by 35 states, but you need 38 to amend the Constitution. Well, guess what? 50 years later, in 2020, Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the ERA. Oh, yeah. And so it has met the threshold to be a constitutional amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The only thing missing? Joe Biden has to direct the National Archivist, Colleen Shogan, to certify it and publish it in the Federal Register.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Okay, so Julia Conley, who is a staff writer for Common Dreams, was on a phone call yesterday. It was a Zoom call that was held by a bunch of, women's advocates, not just senators like, Kirsten Gillibrand but it was the UAW, women's, the women of the UAW. It was a webinar, a digital town hall yesterday. And it was a conversation about what to do to get the ERA ratified and made part of our Constitution before Joe Biden leaves so that women can have a federal result, a federal a solution to this untethered state-to-state abortion ban where listen, somebody gets pregnant in California, okay, and they want their child very badly, okay. This was something that they worked very hard to make sure that it happened for them, that they were going to start their family, and then they come to visit, me in Florida, okay, and they're let's say 16 weeks pregnant. We have a 6-week abortion ban here. It did not pass. Because here in Florida, the question was put on the ballot in the form of a constitutional amendment, meaning it needed 60% of the vote in order to be ratified in this here state. And it only got 57% of the vote. Yeah, so, right now, if you're 16 weeks pregnant in Florida and you should have an ultrasound or you should suffer a miscarriage or you should have something horrible happen regarding your pregnancy, you can't get medical care here. Nope. You should die. That's basically the attitude. And, another woman died yesterday in Texas as a result of this crazy abortion ban. That makes no sense. If you're pro-life, that women should die. Anyway, once the ERA is published, now you know it's been ratified. It's been ratified by all 3/4 of the U.S. state legislatures, and Virginia was the 38th state legislature to ratify it as a constitutional amendment in 2020. And all these years it's just sitting there doing nothing, and it needs to be published in the Federal Register, and that would formally cement it as part of the United States Constitution. And what does that mean? It means that women in this country are guaranteed legal equality and that they cannot be discriminated against with regard to medical care. Okay? No condition of being a woman could be discriminated against in any state, okay, because they're a woman. And so it would, be invoked by judges across this land to overturn the anti-abortion laws that have been passed by Republican-controlled state legislatures, and women would be free to live again and not die from a miscarriage and try again if that's what their heart's desire is all about. So the senators wrote a letter, a whole bunch of, the senators in our Senate, Connecticut, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Utah, Nevada, and they signed on to this letter, and it says, "As you are keenly aware," wrote the senators, "after nearly 50 years under the protections of Roe, more than half of all Americans have seen their rights come under attack, with access to abortion care and life-saving health care varying from state to state. A federal solution is needed, and the ERA is the strongest tool to ensure equality and protect these rights for everyone. It would establish the premise that sex-based distinctions in access to reproductive care," because remember the question that Kamala Harris asked Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearing was, could he name any reproductive law that applies to men's body parts? And he tried to feign that he could, he just wasn't prepared. But then he had to admit there is none. Okay. So why are there reproductive bans on women? I mean, if you were going to go, down that road, then of course you would have to say that, let's say the mythical circle jerk, which doesn't really exist in anybody's world, can't exist in anybody's world ever because you'd be murdering, potential babies. Do you know what I'm saying? But there is no such thing. Okay, so it wants to establish the premise that sex-based distinctions in access to reproductive care are unconstitutional, and therefore abortion bans, which single out women for unfair denial of medical treatment based on sex, violate a constitutional right to equality among the sexes. Okay, so that is, we're literally just one step away from having that be part of our U.S. Constitution, a protection, a national solution to this Donald Trump a problem that he foisted upon half of this country and the other half that love them. We don't need to live like this. This is what I'm saying. There are solutions to a lot of what is about to happen. There are solutions to the stress tests that might be presented to us, and some of them are preemptive. And this ERA publishing in the Federal Register is one of the preemptive steps that we could take to protect women. Then if, and it would apply to, God forbid we had Hegseth as the Secretary of Defense, or even Ron DeSantis, right? I mean, if Ron DeSantis had his way, I'm not really sure that women in combat would be welcome. I'm not sure that he would, treat women well in the military environment. I could tell you right now, 1 in 4 women in this military today, they are the victim of sexual assault, meaning rape. Yes, I said it. 1 in 4. 1 in 4 in our society, women are the victim of rape. And yet, nobody wants to talk about it. But, if we got some, mealy mouth, a don't ask, don't tell kind of a Secretary of Defense, Ron DeSantis with don't say gay thing, they could turn the clock all the way back on women's equality in the services, all the way back till before me. Why would we allow them to stress us like that? Why would we allow them to test us like that when there is something that can be done by virtue of the president we currently have, simply saying to the National Archivist, publish the amendment. Make it the law of the land. It's already been, established in enough states as being something that was voted on to be part of the Constitution. All right. The other thing is, if you're part of a union, you may wonder, why is it always, that very famous poem about first they came for the union members, and I wasn't a union member, so I forget his name. Ufelter. I don't want to get it wrong, but I think Ufelter is the guy who owns Uline, which would be totally counterintuitive to what I'm saying here. But I don't know. Anyway, the reason why they came after the unionists.
Niemöller, you were right there.
Niemöller. No, I never got there. I don't think I got there.
You were right on the doorstep.
Yeah, I was there. But I didn't get there. I didn't open the door. But anyway, his poem says, first they came after the unionists, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a trade unionist, right? Why did they come after the unionists? Why? Lesson, South Korea yesterday. What happened there that was so unpalatable? A general strike. That's right. So again, if you're a union worker, if you're part of the UAW who was on this phone call yesterday, okay, the women of the UAW were on this Zoom call trying to get the ERA ratified ahead of, Biden leaving. The other thing is prepare a general strike. Prepare to talk to other unions. Teamsters that didn't endorse Kamala Harris, now talk to the Teamsters that did. And say to yourselves, if he should stress this country to the point where there's military deployed on the highway, okay, and I can't pass, if there's military deployed at my wife's front door and she can't leave the house, general strike. And make up your mind to commit to doing something like that. That's another thing that you could do, okay? There's all kinds of things. The other thing is, and this falls on Joe Biden, okay? This is something that he alone can do. And so the pressure needs to be placed upon him to do a couple of last minute things. And I don't know if he's thinking about it. He's not there. I really honestly do not know what his plans are for the next 7 weeks. Honestly, I don't. But if it were me, I would pardon. Again, I said this yesterday, and I mean this with my whole heart. I would pardon. And a lot of the people that I need to pardon, that I would pardon, may not even accept the pardons, because I do understand that there's some sort of an implication of guilt that could go along with it, and they may not want to accept that on their good name. For instance, Liz Cheney. For instance, Adam Schiff. Okay? For instance, Cassidy Hutchinson. Melissa, what's her name? Alyssa Farrer. All the people that testified to the select committee, the people that were part of the select committee, pardon them or offer pardons to them so that they cannot be singled out by Donald Trump's, Department of Justice for prosecution for anything, for treason. Milley, pardon him. And again, it would be up to them to take it or not to take it, but offer it. And there's one more thing.
Mary had a little man.
The false. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
You're not going to hide behind your cloaks. We're coming for you, too. You are corrupt. What you allowed to happen in that D.C. courtroom and what you allowed to do to these J6 people and send these to prison, Benny Thompson, you're corrupt. Liz Cheney, you're corrupt. Preserve your documents because we're coming after you. You people are criminals. And you put people that didn't have the money to defend themselves, you put them in prison and you destroyed their lives and you tried to break them. You got a 70-year-old Gold Star mother in a prison in Colorado right now.
Tina Peters.
Okay? In a prison in Colorado, totally made up charges.
Oh, God.
You people are revolting. You're disgusting. And Damon Williams and Jack Smith, you can quit and run. Andrew Weissman, you can run wherever you're going to run. The long arm of the law is going to track you down and you're going to be held accountable.
Okay, when you have scuzz like that, okay, when you have scum like that, when you have a gross, a person like that with a podcast telling you who to hate and what to do about it, and to use the awesome tools of the, Justice Department to hunt down Andrew Weissman, then something must be done. And so where we were just leaving off was to let Joe Biden offer pardons to every one of the people who were, Robert Mueller, for God's sake. I don't even know where he is. I don't know how old he is anymore. But, anybody that worked on the Mueller report, anybody that worked to hold Donald Trump accountable, in the E. Jean Carroll case, anybody that worked to hold Donald Trump accountable in the fraud case that produced 34 jury verdicts, 34 felonies in the affirmative from a jury in Manhattan. Okay, Fani Willis that he's gonna, target. You know that, right? Fani Willis and her lover. It's gonna be like an egg timer away from, Fani Willis and her lover Nathan. I swear to God, he probably will, rehash the, Strzok and Page thing. I've heard him, dancing around that one too. Judge Chutkin in New York, in D.C., the January 6th case, right? This is what he's talking about. So pardons have to be offered. And the last thing that I think would spare us from what we're about to go through, and it will happen. It will happen. It will be ugly. It will be massive. It will be done by another guy who could barely put a sentence together, Mr. Holman. Mr. Holman. We need to actually have the President of the United States issue amnesty a la Ronald Reagan for anybody who came here as a child or anybody who has been in this country for 7 years and hasn't even gotten a ticket for jaywalking. Clean record. Like completely clean. Not a traffic ticket, not a jaywalking ticket, nothing. Clean. Did nothing but work really hard here and keep their head down and avoid any sort of, problems. Okay? They need to be given amnesty. Now, if we could do that, we would be avoiding a whole lot of really gross things that we will all have to witness. And once it starts, it cannot be stopped. And that will be going door to door, like workplace raids, farm raids, construction site raids. All of this is going to happen. It will. It will happen because Donald Trump has got to make good on that promise to the people that, selected him, to the people who chose him. Because while they think they chose him, half of the people that chose him think they chose him because they thought the economy sucked, which it doesn't, but they thought it did. They were made to feel that it did. They felt like they were, somehow violating some middle class rule if they said that the economy didn't suck. But it didn't suck, okay? It really didn't. We had a bout of avian flu. No one explained any of this to anybody, but we had a bout of avian flu, and eggs went to $9. That's what happened with eggs. And whenever the news media talks about the price of eggs, why don't they tell you that was from avian flu? Why don't they tell you that they had to kill entire flocks of hens, that they had to kill so many birds because of the avian flu? I don't know why. But they left people to think that Joe Biden was doing it. He's Jeff Goldblum. He's the Wizard of Oz. And he was able to make bad things happen to the price of eggs. Yesterday we had a caller. I'm sorry, it was Jim in Michigan. And people go, why do you have to name somebody like that? Because if you call them out, maybe they'll say, my God, I matter. And what I said matters. And I should say it right. I should get it right. I should understand that the president did not make gas prices go up. In fact, if anything, he threatened the people who were making gas prices go up, and that would be oil and gas, Exxon and Marathon and Sinclair. And they were making the prices go up and they were cutting back on production because that's what enriches them. Supply and demand being what it is, if there's no demand, they cut back on supply. And then when there was demand, pent up demand, they still cut back on supply to make their money back. That's what happened. And Biden was out there saying to people, people, saying to the oil companies, you have made an obscene amount of profit, and you also are holding 9,000 federal land leases for drilling. And if you don't use those federal land leases to drill and increase production for the American people, then I am going to charge you rent on those leases, which you currently get for nothing. Now, what industry gets land for nothing? What industry that is so super profitable do we subsidize as a taxpayer, besides for oil, only to get ripped off by them? And then to have you blame Biden for this was just, it was a bridge too far. I'm sorry. I apologize, Jim, but I just couldn't. I just could not accept it. I can't. It was so wrong for you to do that. Anyway, this is where we are. And this is what we're about to face. And everybody knows it. And so this morning I was watching, I don't know why. I guess my TV's on it. I don't even have the sound on, but I get up at like 6 a.m, okay? And I come padding down the steps, and I have to shoot up my dog, because I have a 13-year-old diabetic dog. And, I have to give him food, and he's very picky, so it has to be like meatloaf, because he loves my meatloaf. And really, who doesn't? So I have to feed him, then I have to shoot him up, and then he has to go out, and then he has to pee and blow. So I'm up. And so my TV's on, it's not even on. I mean, it's as far as the sound, but it was on Morning Joe. And I saw I have the closed caption on it because we're going deaf. It's on, not me, him. But okay. So, and I see, like them talking about how Americans are depressed. Americans are depressed with the results of this election. Stop it. Again, I get that you want to tune out. But now you've had a respite. You've had a break. And you're going to have all of Christmas vacation, okay? Come back at the new year, refreshed everybody, and get connected all's over again. Because when you come back after New Year's, we will still have a president named Joe Biden for 3 more weeks. You will have an unfunded government. The government is not going to be funded for the next year. It will be funded right up until the day Trump comes in, so that Trump can, declare an emergency and we, close down this and it's all by design. They have been doing continuing resolutions for the past 2 years, hoping that this result would be the result. But if we can do a few things, if we can manage to do a few things, amnesty, pardons, offer them anyway, right? Get organized for a general strike should we see the military doing anything on our streets, anything at all to anybody. Just refuse to drive.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We can't allow Kennedy or Trump or anyone else to bring unimaginable suffering to the American people. So if the president-elect doesn't reconsider the nomination, the Senate has a duty to our whole country, but especially to our children, to vote no. With the nation facing a possible bird flu outbreak, are they really prepared to roll the dice on the lives of their constituents by placing someone in charge of public health who has made it clear that he will prevent or she will prevent the approval of life-saving vaccines?
That was just a sample of Michael Bloomberg's plea to United States senators today, directly asking them to reject an anti-vaxxer as the country's Health and Human Services, HHS secretary. Bloomberg warned that the next pandemic isn't a question of if, but a question of when, and that putting RFK Jr. in charge of vaccine policy would be, quote, medical malpractice on a mass scale.
So I just want you to know that Michael Bloomberg, yes, he's a billionaire, and yes, he owns, Bloomberg Media, et cetera, and so forth. However, Michael Bloomberg was also mayor of New York City, and at that time, Air America was on the air in New York City. I think we were at 3 Park Avenue the first time I ever met Michael Bloomberg. He came to Air America. He never sat down with me. I think I was very intimidated by him. But then I get starstruck by just about anybody. I remember one day Whoopi Goldberg came in and I nearly peed the floor, okay? I really almost did. anyway, and my producer at the time was T.A. Walker. Anybody remember Tim? Tim Allen Walker? Tim went screaming down the hallway, screaming, "It's Whoopi! It's Whoopi!" And freaked me out. So anyway, that did not happen. But Michael Bloomberg knows Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Yes, he does. He knows him from Air America. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Mike Papantonio had a show called Ring of Fire on the Air America radio network back in the day. And Bloomberg knows him from those encounters, okay? It's just a fact, okay? And if he is standing there saying you cannot possibly consider him to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, to be in charge of America's health, it's not just random, oh, Trump picked him and therefore I'm against it. First of all, Michael Bloomberg's an independent. That's number one. And number two, it's not random. He knows him. He knows everything about him. Now, these are head fake picks. I particularly think so. I really do. You're telling me that, Vivek Ramaswamy doesn't want to be in charge of the Food and Drug Administration? Isn't it just so interesting that there was a time in his life when him and his mother, who is a geriatric psychiatrist, oh, how we all forget, that Vivek Ramaswamy's mother is a geriatric psychiatrist who they bought a drug for a very, very low bargain basement price because the drug had failed 3 clinical trials. And so therefore the drug was set aside by the major pharma company, and Vivek and his mother decided that they would buy this drug for the low bargain basement price. I think it was like $5,000, something really small. And that she would use her MD to do a rewrite of the results of a 3rd clinical trial and say it had possibilities, even though it didn't. And then offer it for an initial public offering, which is what he did, and became a billionaire. You think he doesn't want to be at the Food and Drug Administration or the Health and Human Services? You think he doesn't want to be at NIH, where they do these studies, where they write these, the results of these clinical trials, where they can, manipulate things and say, oh yeah, ivermectin, which I now own, is really efficacious against whatever the new pandemic is, okay? I mean, I just don't trust any of these people who have demonstrated themselves to be front-run phonies before on things that matter, like medicine. Okay, and I don't think that they're totally into RFK. And here's why. He could actually do a little bit of good, RFK Jr. could, in this weird way. So I think we all know that a lot of our food is garbage. I think we all know that there's a lot of high fructose corn syrup that's being fed to little children that makes them very, very, very obese. I think we understand that a lot of the food that we eat is processed, that a lot of the food, and by the way, when it's processed, a lot of the nutrients get cooked out. So we think that we're getting this amount of protein or that amount of fiber, and we're not, or this amount of B, or this amount of vitamin A, or this amount of vitamin K, or this, whatever it is. Okay? I'm not a nutritionist. I just do watch what I eat because I can blow up like a blimp. And this high fructose corn syrup is the reason, okay? And it's a very demonstrable thing about our population that a lot of people are diabetic, a lot more than other societies, a lot more than other cultures that have. And then, you got pesticides in our food. We have hormones in our food. We have things like that. So in this weird way, he's concerned about food. But right now, it's your choice. What you eat, what you buy, what you put on your plate is your choice. Now, if RFK Jr. would become Trump's guy around food, it wouldn't be your choice anymore. It wouldn't be your choice. And I don't think Trump wants to explain to the red stripe bologna eaten public in Appalachia why they can't have the red stripe bologna that they love frying in the pan and putting, on the white bread, toasted. It is delicious, I gotta say. nutritionally worthless, I'm guessing, but so freaking good. And the little Vienna sausages in a can on a saltine. Hello, I could eat that all night, every night, but I don't. But in their world, you wouldn't be able to buy that anymore. And I just don't know. I just don't know how that goes over with Joe Lunchbucket. I just don't know how that goes over with the populist president. I just don't know how that goes over with the freedom guy when he has to explain. Okay, so I don't think he's really going to, be the guy. I think that you're going to have people who do, sit on the agriculture committee in the Senate, and they're going to have a little look-see at what this would do to, Hormel. They would like Joni Ernst, who loves to castrate a pig. And by the way, she would be a better Secretary of Defense than Pete Hegseth. And I would like to see her name floated. That would be awesome, okay? Even though she's a Republican and she castrates pigs for fun. It's better than Kristi Noem. She kills dogs for fun. That 7-week-old puppy was untrainable. What? Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know. But people are looking at these names and they're saying, okay, this can't be. Right. It can't. So who is it? Well, the guy who runs Cerberus, the private equity defense firm, he's going to be the Deputy Secretary of Defense, okay? They floated his name, Feinberg. That guy is going to have so many conflicts of interest, but he's the billionaire who is interested in that.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, everybody, it is the Free Speech TV Winter Pledge Drive, and they want you to be afraid, and we want you to not be afraid, so you choose. Okay, good. So donate now. Call 877-378-8669 if you're not going to be afraid. If you are going to be afraid, then don't. But if you aren't going to be afraid and you would like information and you would like to stay connected and you would like to know what your options are and you would like to know preemptive moves we could make and you would like to spare this country so much of this stress test, then please visit us at freespeech.org and make sure that we stay alive and on the air, unmolested and, undisturbed in our information giving efforts. Right. And, like I said, if show business is a totem pole, I am where the dog lifts its leg. But let's say they want to say, oh, we need somebody big and we need somebody small. We got to put heads on a pike. And this is like the way Bannon talks. OK. God forbid that happens. We want to make sure that this thing stays on the air for you. So freespeech.org on the web. You can text the letters FSTV to 44321. And we will send you a secure link. And thank you very, very much for your donation today. All right. So the idea that you don't and we don't hear what really is going on behind closed doors, that is a slight, I think, on investigative journalism, where they are deployed to cover like one head fake person, just, like a Kash Patel today. Which, I mean, listen, it's important who the Attorney General of the United States is, and it's important who the Secretary of Defense is, and it's important who the HHS Secretary is if, we don't want to all die, from food poisoning, if we don't want to all die from listeria. Do you know what I'm saying? If we don't want to all see our kids get infected with chickenpox and measles and polio, things that are preventable, then it matters that they're floating these names of people who are ill-equipped to deal with or lead any of these agencies. So why are they naming them? So that we won't pay attention to the actual people that are going in. Now, last night, I got to give props to Stephanie Ruhle. She was a business reporter before hosting the late night MSNBC show. But last night she said, I bet you didn't hear about this one. And of course, if you read a paper, you did hear about it. And if you don't, you didn't. So if you watch TV, it's important that she tells you, right? And the guy, Steve Feinberg, okay, this is the name, who is the head of a hedge fund called Cerberus. You probably heard of Cerberus Capital, okay? And he is heavily, heavily involved in defense contracts, okay? Heavily involved in defense procurement, all kinds of defense stuff, okay? He's going to, right now, he will get confirmation, okay? Everybody's focused on, Hegseth, but they're not focused on the deputy. And the deputy is Steve Feinberg for the Department of Defense. And she laid it out very quickly last night.
Bet you didn't hear about this one yet. The Washington Post is reporting that Donald Trump has offered the job of Deputy Defense Secretary to billionaire investor Steve Feinberg. A spokesman for Feinberg declined to say if he's accepted the potential nomination, and Trump aides say nothing is final until Trump announces it. But there are concerns about potential conflicts of interest. You don't know this guy, so I'm going to tell you about him. Back in 2017, Bloomberg reported, quote, through his $30 billion investment firm, Cerberus, Feinberg has bought companies that, ready for this, refuel spy planes, train Green Berets, make, as in produce, build sniper rifles, and watch America's foes from space. Can this administration sort of stomach multiple guys being controversial, newsworthy, news-making guys? You know, at some point, you have to have people with senior jobs who just know how to get the trains running on time, know how government works.
Yeah, and in Trump's first administration, I think there was in calculations 3,400 conflicts of interest. Right? We don't talk about that anymore, but it was real and is quite significant. And I don't imagine that it's going to change and probably get worse in this administration. I actually was thinking about when you mentioned Mike Bloomberg, because I worked on that third race, the controversial race.
I remember that.
Right? But I also remember that in 2005, him running for re-election, he got 47% of the black vote.
Yeah.
And what was always interesting about Mike Bloomberg is that you may have disagreed with him on some policy, but he was very clear that he wanted to put good people in positions that actually cared about management.
And he
did. And I think that is to answer your question about Donald Trump, putting loyalists there is one thing, but putting loyalists there with no interest in serving the public is a whole other story.
Right.
That if they're there to not only pay fealty to him, but also to extend their own ambitions, that's where it becomes problematic. And if you don't go to the FBI, go to any other sources of where people are actually going to look into your background and vet you, then all you're going to have are the Elon Musks of the world and all of these other wealthy folks actually enriching themselves and then enriching Donald Trump.
Right. And, you know, it's not to say that somebody who manages a $30 billion hedge fund that actually invests in training Green Berets or refueling spy planes or actually manufactures sniper rifles or, has spy satellites that he operates is incapable of running the Department of Defense. We're just saying that if he's there only to enrich himself, if he's there only to, placate Donald Trump's, desire to enrich himself off of the awesome defense budget of these United States, then we got a problem. But when you compare Hegseth and his bona fides to this guy, Steve Feinberg, and his experience within the defense system, it's laughable that they would put Hegseth above him. And it's all for show. So that you won't pay attention to Feinberg, so that you won't learn about him, so that you won't know that he is so heavily invested in defense and that he needs to know where it's going, where the contracts are. You know what this reminds me of? You remember the movie Pretty Woman? Do you remember that? So you remember the premise of that movie was that, Richard Gere's character was a hedge fund manager. Okay, he didn't build anything. He didn't make anything. He just bought. He was a private equity guy. He would buy companies, take them apart and sell them off as parts, right? And that's how he made his money. And she said, so you don't make anything? You don't build anything? Don't you want to do that? Wouldn't that make you feel better? And then he goes to buy a company that's been in a family for, 75 years or so. And the man who owns it thinks that he has lost a Navy contract. And so his company's going to go belly up. Richard Gere goes in and offers him money, says, you're never going to be able to build your ships because your Navy contract is, buried in appropriations. And he said, how do you know that? Oh, my God, do you have some dirty politicians in your pocket? That's kind of what, a guy like Feinberg might be interested in finding out before he invests in a company, whether or not their appropriations is, are coming through or not. You see what I mean?
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, this is Congressman Jim McGovern from the great state of Massachusetts asking, did you vote for this?
You go out and actually listen to people in this country, Mr. Speaker, they will tell you what they want. And it ain't what my friends on the other side have us here debating today. They want politicians to stop catering to those at the top. Yet look at who Donald Trump is empowering in his new administration. This is not what people wanted. I mean, it looks like the requirements to be in the Trump White House are that you either abuse women or you're an out-of-touch billionaire. What's next? Are they going to replace FBI background checks with a Fox News screen test? I mean, forget about a White House cabinet. Donald Trump is making it into a junk drawer.
The junk drawer.
His Commerce Secretary, a billionaire. A billionaire. Big surprise. I don't think this guy is capable of understanding what average people in my district deal with. His Education Secretary, yet another billionaire. What's her qualification? She ran WWE. I guess some schools have wrestling programs. It would be funny if it weren't so sad. His new Attorney General pick, an election denier.
Right.
The person he tapped to lead Health and Human Services, he thinks tap water turns kids gay. His Defense Secretary, I mean, this guy is probably dropping out momentarily. Yeah. Apparently, he drinks on the job and paid to cover up his sexual assault allegations. Even his mom doesn't like him.
Oh, God.
I mean, these people don't shop at grocery stores. Do you think that they pump their own gas or cook their own food? Of course not. These are people who hop on helicopters to avoid traffic.
Oh, God.
Poster children for the out-of-touch elites.
Seriously, dude, it's so interesting that people who say that they voted for Donald Trump say that they voted for Donald Trump because the economy sucked and they wanted somebody who would, fix it for them. They wanted it the way it was before COVID, right? They wanted a redo. They wanted a do-over. But you know what's so fascinating, really, is that people who are rooting for that are literally rooting for a recession because before COVID, yes, pre-COVID, Donald Trump's economy was in a manufacturing recession. And very few people were saying those two words out loud. But what that means is that it was 2 quarters of negative growth in the manufacturing sector. And when you consider that that's where we were when COVID set in, and that once COVID set in and was over, there was this pent-up demand and no manufacturing in this country to rely upon. And the supply chains from over there were broken. And that's what did it to you. And people still don't understand. They really don't understand that oil companies did this on purpose. That oil companies sat on their production capabilities to raise the prices to make up for the period of time when nobody was traveling and to make up for the fact that Russia had invaded Ukraine and there was going to be some sort of a loss of barrels from Russia. So if they withheld some of their barrels, the American drilled barrels, they could make a fortune. And they did. And they did. And you're voting for that all over again. And I don't think that's what you voted for. I don't think you voted for a bunch of alcoholics. Listen, Larry Kudlow, who was a trade advisor with Peter Navarro. Peter Navarro's back. Peter Navarro just got out of jail. And now he's going to be Donald Trump's trade advisor on this tariff scheme that's going to cause inflation, the kind that's going to, cripple us. Anyway, I just don't think that's what people voted for. I don't think that they voted for a guy who is an investor in defense contracts, a guy who literally, is manufacturing sniper rifles for the military to have, a guy who's literally launching satellites for spy purposes for the military's benefit. Good stuff, as far as the military benefiting, but he's investing in this because he knows where the contracts are. He knows that the Appropriations Committee is going to, check off the funding. He understands that it's important to know where the contracts are for investment purposes. I mean, I don't think anybody voted to have billionaires know what to invest in by virtue of being on top of these administrations, being on top of these, agencies. I don't think that's why you vote. And yet that is what is happening.
What worries me about this cabinet is that it is essentially putting the billionaire class in charge of American government.
That's all. I mean, I'm going to play that from now until the cows come home because that is what's happening here. And the only way that they get away with it is to stress us out. And by stress test, I mean deploy. Now, I hope today you learned a few of the techniques and things that we need to actually process and own as being things we need to do if the crap hits the fan and the stress test. Like I said, there's three things that are preemptive that could avoid a whole lot of, sadness in this country, a whole lot of horror shows, a whole lot of crying children, a whole lot of, American citizens getting swept up in these deportation things. When you consider the Japanese internment, you understand that they were American citizens. Didn't stop anybody from rounding them up and putting them in internment camps, did it? No. And when there's a profit motive built in, like by, these private prison companies, the one here in Boca, Geo, and others of them, then there's just why would they not do it? You just can't not do it. Ham is fat free. Do you remember Susan Powder? No, but that's how old I am. It was hysterical. Okay. But we need to publish and adopt the Equal Rights Amendment to protect women in this here country. Okay. That's the first thing. Second thing is offer pardons. To anybody who, testified against Donald Trump, to anybody who investigated Donald Trump, to anybody who prosecuted Donald Trump, to anybody who was in a jury that convicted Donald Trump. I mean, the doxing of the names of the people, it's not going to end. Look at what happened to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, okay? Let them serve as examples as what Donald Trump would do to ordinary people in service of a lie, okay? So offer pardons, and we have to give amnesty. If we gave amnesty to people who came here as children, who never broke a law the whole time they were here, if we gave amnesty to people who are here without papers, who are doing absolutely nothing but supporting their families as best as they can, working in jobs every single day, coming home, making a dinner, sending their kids to school, if they've never broken a law, if they've never jaywalked, if they've never been ticketed for double parking or any of those things, we need to give amnesty if they've been here 7 years. If we did that, a lot of these deportations would not even occur, okay? And if they did, they'd be illegal, and Congress, by the way, has a role to play. Congress could actually have a vote and overturn the deportations and codify the fact that these are citizens and they should not be moved against. That's another. Now, if you should see something like that, okay, if you should see something ugly or a violation of a congressionally passed law, okay, if you should see, something ugly like martial law take place where the courts are told to go home and the Capitol is closed and the legislators can't even get there, which is what we saw was attempted in South Korea yesterday, right? If you see that, then you need to understand that as people who work, whether you're in the nursing union, whether you're in the Teamsters, whether you're a United Auto Workers Union member, whether you're a service union member, general strike. Nobody goes to work. And I have never been about boycotts or strikes, except in this case. The Insurrection Act like I said, there is no such thing as martial law in this country. There just isn't. The way that we self-govern in a decentralized fashion means that your governor can, not allow for the military to come in. And there's a lot of things that could happen to prevent it. But Insurrection Act, that could happen. And how does that happen? Protests. Donald Trump decides that he's going to, put Umbrella Man into your protest. Okay? And by Umbrella Man, some of you know what I mean and some don't. Meaning he puts somebody that's going to do violence, somebody that's going to burn a building, somebody that's going to break a window, somebody that's going to loot. And they're put there by him and designed to do that. So he can then declare that it's unlawful, it's unruly, and he needs to declare it an insurrection. That's why I don't think protests will work. I don't think street protests will work. I don't think they will produce the result that we need, but I do think a general strike would. And then, if the crap really hits the fan, you do what South Korea is doing. You impeach him. We're only 2 votes in the minority, okay? Just 2. I think we can have some sort of agreement on that.